With over 7 million visitors per year, it is one of the world's most popular attractions. Hi, I'm Chris May, writer, producer, and host of This Day in Weather History from the Weather Network in Canada. The Eiffel Tower has had one crazy history. Did you know that it was set for demolition in 1909? But the study of meteorology saved it. Yes, the want to know the weather better played a role in preserving the Eiffel Tower. On this day in weather history. The year was 1889, and the French government wished to commemorate the 100 years since the French Revolution. They planned an international exposition, and as its centerpiece, they announced a design competition for a grand monument to be built on the Champs-Élysées in central Paris. Guess who won? Ever hear of Mr. Gustave Eiffel? The big day finally arrived. On March 31st of 1889, this day in weather history, the Eiffel Tower was dedicated in Paris in a massive ceremony presided over by Gustave Eiffel himself, alongside French Prime Minister at the time Pierre Terrar, and a handful of other dignitaries and 200 construction workers from the project. Oh, and Monsieur Eiffel was no overnight success either, just to let you know. He already had a name as a bridge builder. Because of this, he was a noted master of metal. Oh, did you know that he was behind also the construction and framework of the Statue of Liberty? Heard of it? Yep. That gift from France that had recently been christened in the New York harbor. The weather angle is coming up. But first, remember that this day in weather history can be enjoyed a number of ways. Right now, you are listening to the full version of today's story on your favorite podcast provider, but there is also the daily podcast video short. They are shot right here in my podcast recording studio, so you get that perspective, and oftentimes they will include visuals from that day's event, from when it happened, in weather history. So after listening to the full story, go check out the podcast video short on television or online anytime at theweathernetwork.com/weather history. It had only just been completed in 1889, and it was already set for demolition in 1909. However, since Gustave Eiffel footed 80% of the tower's construction costs, he was granted a stay of execution for his masterpiece. The Eiffel Tower would be allowed to stand for an additional 20 years to give him the time to find a way to recoup his investment. How was he going to monetize this monstrosity? If he failed, it would again be the property of the Parisian government, and they had planned to disassemble it for scrap metal. Yikes. Fortunately, Gustave Eiffel decided to use it for experimental purposes. He started by putting an antenna at the top of the tower and financed experiments with wireless telegraphy. That began in 1898. Wait a minute, wireless telegraph? You mean like wireless transmission? This dude was way ahead of his time. Then, with the help of the Central Meteorological Bureau of France, a small weather observation station was placed at the top of the tower as well. And suddenly, the Eiffel Tower was a weather laboratory. The meteorology team of France would use this opportunity to conduct experiments on wind speed and wind resistance, evaluations of how air temperature changed with the different levels of altitude, plus this antenna and the metal tower proved to be a huge lightning rod that actually protected Paris and its regions from lightning. It was perfect, and everyone wanted a piece of the action. That is until World War I. With the world thrust into the first global bloody war, and with France in the crosshairs of it all as a military powerhouse, suddenly the French government loved this pile of future scrap metal. When they saw the value of a 300-meter, that's a 984-foot tower, in sending and receiving those wireless messages I talked about a moment ago, particularly for the French military. And it worked. In 1914, this antenna helped decrypt German messages and made it possible to pinpoint the enemy's weaknesses while on the march. This critical information, made possible by Eiffel's tower and innovation, played a key role in thwarting the invading forces that threatened Paris at the time. And after that, I guess it was all now, thank you, Gustave Eiffel, because his tower still flourishes today with more than 100 antennas on the tower that beams radio and television broadcasts all around the world. while attracting more people up and down its legendary glass elevators in times when the world is open and free to move around in. And it made its grand debut this day in weather history. Tomorrow is April 1st, and this is no April Fool's gag. I honestly have another plane crash story that was brought on by ice and freezing. But this one also involves a NASCAR driver and team owner. And it happened back in 1993. And that's all tomorrow on This Day in Weather History with me, your host, Chris May.